So as I said, good old-fashioned conspiracy on our hands. Second one of the week for West Virginia. They're doing good work in Morgantown as far as the conspiracy theories are concerned. And I have plenty of empathy here. Plenty of empathy for West Virginia fans and where they are at. Okay. What we're about to discuss here is, did Darian DeVries have some sort of handshake agreement behind closed doors with Indiana and therefore shut down his son, Tucker DeVries, purposely because of that, so that he could preserve a medical red shirt and go play? That's, in essence, the conspiracy theory here that we will dive in on. I'm going to tell you that I don't, if you are a West Virginia conspiracy theorist, you probably won't love what I have to say, but that doesn't mean that I don't have a lot of empathy for you in the position that you're in. And look, a lot of times these things are going to come up when you're hurting, when you're hurting and you're like, dude, this sucks. You're looking for someone to blame. You're looking for something to cling on to. I get how you get to places like this. Look, Darian DeVries, I think, is a very good coach. I think that's been very much vindicated by the interest in him in this coaching cycle, because it was not just Indiana, it was Iowa. And that's something to remember here in all of this is like, I guess Iowa didn't know about this handshake deal that had happened, because Iowa sure seemed to pursue Darian DeVries pretty hard. And the reporting there was that they weren't going to pay the buyout. So it winds up being Indiana. But when you have multiple big jobs, particularly one that is like, I'm not going to call it a blue blood, probably the next tier down, I guess, in Indiana, that's really coveting your coach. He's a good coach, right? I mean, I think that it becomes pretty clear. He's a good coach. He put together a tournament team almost out of thin air. I don't care what the committee says. I don't care what Bubba Cunningham says, that West Virginia didn't make the field. That was a tournament team this year, and that was a tournament team without Tucker DeVries for all but 8 games of the run. So Darian DeVries, I think, is a very, very good coach. And to have this come right on the heels of like an all-time tournament snub. This is not just, I do want people to understand that. This is not just a regular run-of-the-mill, hey, we were a bubble team and didn't get in. Like, West Virginia really was, I mean, they were barely on the bubble, according to Lenardi. They were in the last 4 buys. So they're not that group of like 8 to 10 teams that really are considered to be just squarely on the bubble. And yet they got left out. So that's even worse. Like, it was a complete shock. Nobody was expecting it. It caught you really off guard. And then your coach is gone within like 48 hours, which obviously this expedites the process when you don't make the NCAA tournament. You throw in what happened with Bob Huggins and the fact that this fan base endured an entire year with an interim head coach before that, and just all the controversy that surrounded Huggins, the fact that it was a legendary figure. So there's just a lot of awkward that goes on top of that. And it gets people really in their feelings within the fan base fighting about it. I don't envy you, Mountaineer fans. You deserve better. You guys are a good fan base that really cares and really supports. And you have a very good basketball program that I think is going to be a really good job for somebody to take over. So I have all the empathy in the world. And I say that even as somebody who, once upon a time, West Virginia fans, I see my analytics. I think most of you are old enough to remember this, but if you are young, if you're a younger Mountaineer, pull up a chair and let me tell you about the time that K-State had a coach that they were very excited about for 1 year. And then he was pulled away after 1 year. And that was a man by the name of Bob Huggins, who West Virginia stole away from K-State after 1 year. So I don't have to sit here and say that I have a bunch of empathy for you, Mountaineers, but I still do. Okay. Just know that. I still do. Now, here's the conspiracy. It is a since deleted Twitter thread. So that's a part of it. I went to go back and look at it specifically. I was going to just show it to you and walk you through it. But it looked like pretty much all of the tweets had been deleted that were in the actual thread. So I could not go find all of it specifically, but I did read it. I did read it earlier. Actually read it in line at the grocery store. So that's where I first saw it. And thank goodness I did. Thank goodness for the long lines at Hy-Vee today. All right. So it goes like this. West Virginia and Indiana both played in the Battle for Atlantis tournament back in November. And the theory goes, hey, we think Darian DeVries talked to Indiana Well, they're both at this tournament and they had some handshake agreement on the job back in November, right? And the evidence for that was that there was one like anonymous Indiana burner account that back in November or December tweeted, hey, there's actually a deal in place for a head coach. It's been in place for a while. And I'm not afraid to say who it is. It's Darian DeVries. Okay. So that was really the only evidence. It was, an account with like nobody following it, hardly any traction there, but someone had dug it up and found it. And then very soon after the battle for Atlantis, the announcement came out that it was going to be Mike Woodson's last year. So they're tying all that together. And then they tie in the Tucker DeVries injury where he shuts it down right at the 8-game mark, which I did not go fact check this. I should have, but the Twitter thread insinuated that it was right at the cutoff for when you could still get a medical red shirt. And so with that, the thought is, okay, they knew he's getting the Indiana job. Tucker DeVries would rather play at Indiana than West Virginia this year. So we'll shut him down earlier than he needed to be, could have come back from the shoulder injury, or maybe there was no shoulder injury, whatever it is. And that's the deal. Wanted to take his son to Indiana, and then they knew about it the entire rest of the year. There was also this quote that came from Darian DeVries' intro presser at Indiana that West Virginia fans have used as some ammo for this. DeVries says, Indiana remained respectful during the process, allowing him to keep his focus on West Virginia. And so people are taking that to be like, hey, they respected the process, even though they had this handshake deal the whole time, whatever. That, guys, like, can we throw out that quote? Like, you can say, hey, you've known the job was going to be open for a long time. Just let me finish out my season before we really start talks in earnest. That is not proof of anything. I understand where you're coming from. I understand being hurt. I understand lashing out, all of this. Now, that sure sounds like a great theory, right? Like that sounds like a great theory. If we're going to do that, though, why not just West Virginia fans go all out on it, man? Take it to Bubba Cunningham. Like, let's connect this to the selection committee. Indiana got their claws into the selection committee. Can we find someone that's really good friends with Bubba Cunningham from Indiana just to be like, hey, they got in there and they were like, Bubba, here's the deal. We want to get into the portal ASAP with our new coach and get this going. He can't make the tournament. If you knock out West Virginia, they're just close enough on the bubble that it wouldn't be completely egregious. Knock them out of the field, put your team in, and then you'll get a bonus. And, your team makes it in. We get our coach sooner. Win-win. It's a win all the way around. So why not just do that? Let's do that. West Virginia, it's all the way up. It's all the way up into the selection committee. I'm not really trying to mock you guys. I just had that thought, and I was like, well, that's kind of funny, right? We could do that. Look, this doesn't work. Like, I'm here for you. It sucks. You can say that Darian DeVries is a snake and you don't like him, and I think that can be a valid opinion here. Leaving after 1 year really does suck. There were rumors all over the place about him at Iowa and Indiana over the last couple of weeks. It certainly seemed like he was not trying to shut that down, and that there was a lot of interest from him in just packing up and leaving after 1 year. That's going to get people worked up, and that's a perfectly fine opinion to have. I don't think this conspiracy theory works. The biggest reason being, like, Indiana has crazy fans, guys. Indiana is one of those jobs. To me, it's very similar to Nebraska football. Elite at one point in time. It has been a very long time since that job has been elite. Indiana, it's even been, it's like one head coach in their history that's been elite. The rest, not nearly so. And so because of that, their fans still remember the glory days and think that that's what they are and think that they are this blue blood job. What I'm saying there is, if you shut down your best player in Tucker DeVries, there's no guarantee that you're going to have a good season the rest of the way. What if West Virginia then goes below 500 the rest of the season? They're like 7-13 in the Big 12 and they miss the NCAA tournament. Indiana cannot sell that higher to its fan base. At that point, Indiana cannot sell that higher to its fan base. Like, these are people that really wanted Dusty May, crazy about Dusty May being the guy there in Indiana. Like, Indiana fans would not have accepted a Darian DeVries 1 year removed from Drake, who had then struggled year one at West Virginia, injury to his best player and son or not. So this whole theory, I think, just gets blown up there, if nothing else. Just think it through logically, guys. Just think it through logically. I guess if you want to say you're still skeptical about, Tucker DeVries deciding to shut it down, thinking, hey, I can get a medical red shirt and go somewhere else next year. That's one that, like, hey, maybe I don't have any evidence either way, but that I could say I don't have anything like to directly refute. Like maybe a kid in this era would start to think that way. But if it's about like him thinking for sure his dad has a job locked up, I mean, again, I just don't. You can't know that at that point in the season. He was going to need to have a good year to be able to have a job locked up. If you're going to say, hey, Tucker just wanted to go somewhere else, maybe some blue blood or whatever, I guess maybe the door's cracked open for that or something. But I'm just not here for like the whole overall conspiracy talk on this thing. Just had to, let's be at least a little sensical about this. I don't want everything to, as it seems like in this world it kind of has at this point. We don't need like everything to turn specifically to, I don't like this, I disagree with this, let me come up with a conspiracy theory to make me feel better and back all this up and find a scapegoat. We don't need to do that. There's plenty of scapegoating to go around with just DeVries on the surface. You don't need to dig just on the surface to hate the guy. You got plenty of reason to hate the guy. That's fine. And if you want to say, hey, I'm a little skeptical about Tucker and him shutting it down, that's totally fine. You can absolutely do that too. But I'm not going to entertain seriously the Twitter thread. Very entertaining. I mean, I'll give you that. It's very entertaining. It kind of reminds me of when the TikTokers get really on the trail of like trying to solve some sort of true crime situation, right? That's kind of the sports version of it, is what's happening there on Twitter.